It's a whole chlorination process, pressure testing.
I'd like to call our city council meeting to order and ask everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have somebody that's chirping in the audience. That reminds me, if you do have a cell phone, could you put it on vibrate, turn it off, so that it will interfere with the communications here. The roll, please.
Belkey.
Here.
Shower.
Here.
Belzak.
Here.
McIver. Clistic. Marquez.
Here.
Kenny.
Here.
5 present and 2 absent.
We have a quorum. Let's move to questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature. I believe we have some residents in the audience regarding the rain issues. Did you want to take this time now to address the city council? This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the council on any subject matter, and I think this might be a good time for you to address everyone. Do you want to come to the microphone? Here. Do you want to hand that to Alderman Belzak, and he can pass it on?
2010 and goes all the way up to present. My name is Rick Felges, 7013 Clarendon Hills Road. The flooding in our area is getting so bad that Friday, it broke one of the windows in the side of my house. That's how deep the water was. We had over 2.5 feet of water around my whole house.
Was it in your house, Rich?
We got it in the house and everything, yes.
2 feet in your home?
Oh, no.
No.
My wife was there, we got gates open, we relieved the pressure. But it's one of these deals now that I went out and I bought new gates to put up, cyclone fence instead of the wood gates, in order to, that if we're gone and it rains, it could flood our house. We don't know. And this isn't something that just happened yesterday or the week before. This has been going on since the early 2000s. If you see the first picture there, it was 2010 when I had all that water. And the pipes that are out in front, like across the street, we got 24-inch storm sewers. Everything comes down off of Maple, all the side streets, they come right down to Clarendon Hills Road and run down to us. We're the low point and everything, and it's getting to the point now where it's ridiculous. It rains an inch. We got 2 foot of water in my driveway and stuff. And now we're looking at Willowbrook. They're gonna build 29 new homes in Arabian Nights. Where's that water gonna go?
They have to keep the water on their premises.
Goes to the north.
Well, I hope so. Well, they keep saying that part of the water that is up north of me is supposed to go to the north, but I don't see any of it going there.
There's a couple different break points. You're in the sewer and water business, and
Yes.
I think you know.
Yeah,
where-
it's one of these things where the village is gonna have to make a decision. They're gonna have to sell the bonds and do a bond referendum, and then take like Darien Park, go in and put some underground retention. You go in, you put the retention in there, you put the dirt right back over it, you don't even know it's there. You don't even know there's retention underneath. All that water goes in, it goes through all the tubes, it can hold hundreds of thousands of gallons. And then you release it. If it gets to a certain point where it's getting real heavy, it's filling up, then you open up the 36-inch discharge and you let it go. But you just bring it open 12 inches, 20 inches, and you can open these things and release the pressure off of these.
And you're exactly right, Rick, and that's, you're 100% correct in the underground detention. Again, it's a matter of, I know years ago there was a proposal or something that was on the table in regards to Darien Community Park is what you're referring
Yeah,
to.
it should have went, before they built all that stuff down at the high school, because they got plenty of property there, before they went and spent all that money on the football fields and them soccer fields, the underground retention should have went there.
It did.
This-
For the Hinsdale South High School, they were required to have detention. So that's a separate issue. But the problem really becomes is the bottlenecks along with the flood zones.
Right, right, because we're putting, like, whenever you guys come in and put the new pipe, you eliminated it. It used to come down Clarendon Hills Road on the east side of the road, then go across in front of Maple, cross Maple South, and then come back across.
Correct, big
Well, you
U-turn.
eliminated all that. But the problem is that we're putting in 18-inch pipe that needs to be 36-inch pipe to take and get this water moving.
Well, I think part of it also is Sawmill Creek. There's a bog in Sawmill Creek itself, and that's something else that we're working with the city council on. You can see we made major improvements in the entire area. Unfortunately, it becomes a bottleneck there, and what you said is accurate. You have Maple coming down, you have part of Clarendon Hills Road from the north and the south, and it bottlenecks there. Again, if you have had, my question to you is, have you had repetitive losses within the repetitive flooding?
Well, okay, it comes down to a point where, okay, my neighbor on the south side of me, Ryan, he just spent probably, maybe 10,000 in landscaping. In his backyard, he's gonna sell the backyard. Well, you should see it. It looks like a bomb went off.
Keep in mind, he's right in that flood zone.
Oh, I understand. He's right there, he's right beside me. But we try to improve our property, and when you go and you do something, you take and you clean up your backyard, you have everything all done, you landscape it, next thing you know, it rains hard, and what happens? Boom, it's gone.
Rick,
It's sitting out at the backyard.
How many times is your home flooded?
The inside,
Yes.
you know what, I've got it pretty much sealed up. I took a little bit of water this time. How much do you think we took? Maybe, there's some seepage.
Yeah, okay.
But it was just seepage. But it's all the time. Every time we get rain, you're getting this seepage that's coming in.
But I mean, the seepage is occurring from cracks, where's,
Well, yeah, I sealed my whole basement, and then it just, with the pressure, I guess, from the outside, I don't know what the deal is. I've got to go in, I've got to rip apart my whole basement again and redo the whole thing.
and how many times has that happened?
This will be the 4th time.
And have you had some documented losses on this
Yeah,
through your insurance company?
yeah. But see, the insurance isn't taken. The insurance says now, because I talked to them today, and they said that with flooding, if it's outside water coming in, it's not covered.
Well, the reason I'm asking, and not to get into the semantics of it at this point, if you have documented losses,
Uh-huh.
what we can do is take the opportunity and see if there's a potential buyout through the county.
Okay,
So, and that's point blank.
uh-huh.
So let's have a conversation, maybe when you come home tomorrow. I
Okay.
could stop by and we could have a conversation and go from there.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. But it's doing one piece of property is not gonna eliminate anything.
No, well, it's not, it's gonna help.
So, well, yeah, we'll talk. We can talk. I have no problem with that.
Now, the Sawmill Creek that runs behind all of those
Yeah.
homes, we were just talking about that before the meeting started. We've identified it as a $4 million project. So
Right.
right now, we're trying to figure out how to pay for that, how to do it. You know, maybe we can do it in segments to fix that, but that's in the behind your homes. That's
Right.
That's
And it's-
different.
Okay, we're doing the sewer and water that I've done over the years and stuff like this. Like, I know that Oak Brook has done it many of time, or Oak Brook Terrace, Downers Grove does it all the time. You can talk to them. They sell bonds. They're selling the bonds on it, construction bonds and stuff, and people are buying them up, and that's how they subsidize a lot of the construction. Because the guy I worked for, I know that one time he spent over $1 million on bonds in Downers Grove.
Yeah, they just got through with a multi-million-dollar, because they didn't fix their roads for years.
Right.
And then, we fix our roads every year, mind you, but they didn't, and then they had to sell bonds
Right, right.
just to catch up.
Right.
You're
And
right,
it-
you're
and
right.
So it's one of these deals where it's, like my old boss used to say, it's like a savings account for him. That he can turn around and he goes and buys those bonds, and they come either due in 5 years or 10 years and stuff like this. Well, he's making really good interest rates off of that money and stuff like that.
Okay, so you're going to talk to Dan?
Yeah,
And
I'll
see,
talk to
see, you know, see what can be done.
Uh-huh.
And if you're, Dan, you want to talk to the neighbors too to see if they've documented losses? Is that your goal?
That's really the goal
You-
for
the
the
goal
first
here?
goal, correct.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
Thank you for sharing, thank you. Thank you
okay.
very much.
Thank you.
Did you want your photos back?
No, you guys can keep those.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone else in the audience want to address the council?
My name is Gerald Bersheim. I live at 7010 Brookbank Road in Darien. I've lived out there since August of '69. And I know everybody on this committee thinks this is the slums over there.
We
But-
do not think that. We do
Well,
not think that.
somebody does, because the people that founded this Darien live next door to me. Gene Coling, Lamar Rogers, Sam Kelly. And I'm just trying to tell you, it floods more now than it did in '69 and '70, even with the super sewer they put back there. I know one time, I think it was in the '70s, we had 8 inches of rain. And I had water in my yard, almost up to the house. Now you get 2.5 inches of rain, and the water's halfway up in the yard. I don't know what you people are doing or planning, or how it's working, but it's not working. That's all I know.
Well, you just heard us talk about the Sawmill Creek project.
Yeah,
That's in your backyard. It's
Goes
between,
right through the.
yeah,
where
it's
Super
it's
Sewer is.
between Brookbank and Clarendon Hills Road, yeah. We've identified that as a $4 million project that we're trying to get our arms around
Well,
funding.
About 6 years ago, I had a survey company come out and took me off the floodplain, off FEMA, so I got it registered, the Wheaton, documents registered. But now, I'm just wondering if that's gonna change, because we're getting more water than we ever had. I remember like I said, it's 8 inches of rain, and I had water up to the house. And cars were floating down Lamont Road in Lamont,
Okay.
down that, but now you get 2.5.
Has it been in your house also?
No.
No?
No,
Okay.
but
Just-
it's
just
out
a
in the
little
road.
seepage.
Yeah,
I don't have a finished basement, so I don't care,
yeah.
if it gets watered. Time it did flood was when the power used to go out like 8, 9 times a year. So I got a whole house generator to solve that
Right,
problem. So
yeah.
that cost me over $4,000, because the electrical service was so out of dated.
In your home, you mean? Yeah,
Through the whole area back there. But they did come through and improved it, cut some of the trees, the branches, and put some new lines, straighten out a few poles that were leaning, ready to go down. They did improve it, and I thank you for that. I know you had something to do with it, because I complained to you about the
talking
power
to
going
Alderman
out
Belke, yeah.
9 times in 1 year.
How long did it take the water to recede on Friday?
It did go down the next day.
Okay.
There was just water
Okay.
like this much in the ditch. So
Okay.
the super sewer works, but where does it go? Why does it take so long? Why does it have to
It keeps
fill
going,
up so much?
it keeps going south. It ends up eventually in Willowbrook, in their park, Borks Park? Borse Park? Yeah, Borse Park.
Under 75th Street.
We've done an extensive amount of drainage work to get the water to go in the direction it's supposed to go.
But they're building more and building more. Where's it gonna, and those little retention ponds you put on Crest off Plainfield on 67th and off High. It looks like they're only about this deep. Why didn't they make them,
Well, that's
The
where
whole
all the
water.
water, that's where the water's supposed to go.
yeah, well, where's a foot of water gonna go? I think that's about as deep as them retention ponds are.
It's a very large detention
It's
pond.
large.
The one on Dale Basin, you
Oh,
could
he's
only-
talking Crest, he's talking Crest.
I'm sorry, you on Crest or on Dale Basin?
He was talking about the Crest
I
one
was-
just now.
The first one they took a couple houses down,
Off of Plainfield Road, that's Crest, okay,
Plainfield
yes,
Crest.
yes.
then they put another one up on 67th and High.
Right,
That's- yes, that's the Dale Basin.
Yeah, the Dale Basin is not an optimal basin,
Why can't they make it deeper?
because you got nowhere to put the water. Once the volume, unless you build a reservoir with pumps in there, it will not work
Yeah.
by gravity because of the elevation. It'll work for the first time, but once you fill it up, that water will stay at a level even with the pipes.
Right.
And without not having a deep reservoir that has mechanical pumps to pump it out after a storm has subsided,
And where are you gonna pump it?
well, you could pump it after a storm subsides.
Yeah.
You'd have to do a calculation for a 500-year rate.
I'm no
event.
engineer, but I just wanna let you know how things are get worse
Yeah.
than they were back
Well,
in
it's good to
1970s.
know, it's good to know that your house is not getting flooded.
The house
If
is
if
not
the
getting
if the
flooded.
roadway is getting flooded, that's fine, and then it recedes, and that's.
It does
and-
go down.
Yeah,
I'll have
then
to agree
it's
with you there.
working, it's
But
working the way it
he's
should.
got He's got it worse. He's
Yeah.
taking the whole brunt of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
very
thank you.
much.
Did anyone else want to address the council at this time? Okay, let's move on to the approval of the minutes of July 18th, 2016. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Shower, seconded by Alderman Belke. Any additions or deletions for the minutes? Then the roll, please.
Shower,
Aye.
Belke,
Aye.
Belzak,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Marquez,
Aye.
5 ayes and 2 absent.
The minutes have been approved. The receiving of communications, do any of the aldermen have communications to share? Alderman Shower?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually have two items. I got an email from Colin Lawler, and he was curious if the city had given Starbucks any incentives for them to come on in. I explained to him that we did not give any incentives for Starbucks to come into the Darien Mall. And he's not a huge fan of Starbucks, but he thought that was just absolutely a great store to come on in to be an anchor at that location. So he wanted to say thank you, not only to the city, but also to the developer. I also got an email from Yvonne Skladowski. Her son, Mike Skladowski, is the Eagle Scout that did the War Memorial out here. And she wanted me to let everyone on the city council know that her son, Mike, had left for Army basic training last Monday.
Oh, wow.
And after he finishes that, he's going to be going on to the Airborne Rangers and hopes to finish that off by May. And she wanted me to let everybody on the city council know about that. So I just wanted to say, Yvonne, if you are listening, please tell Mike that we're thinking of him. And we want to thank him for his service to this great country. And we are 100% behind him. Thank you.
Yeah, good for him.
Yep.
That's quite the Airborne Rangers is
That's
quite
a tough
prestigious.
program.
Yeah, I was going
Yeah.
to say, that's quite prestigious. Other communications, Alderman Belke?
Yes, I have 3 other communications. One is, 2 are water themed, unfortunately. So, one resident on the 69th, or the 800 block of 69th Street, which I know we talked a little about in the work session. It's actually Ward 7, but the call came to me, so, as Dan mentioned, there'll be some follow-up with that with Mr. Belsack. Also, on the 300 block of 68th Street, right near the Dale Basin there was some water and some questions about, what's the solutions there, and I know Dan's working with that resident. So thank you, Dan. The third communication is from a resident on Clarendon Hills Road, not that that matters, but she was asking me about elections. With the elections coming up, she wanted to make sure everybody was a registered voter in her house, and she asked, me to find out how to do that. Of course, the city helps with that information, so any resident can come to City Hall between 8:30 and 5 and register to vote. They need 2 forms of identification, one ID with the current address, and then one that provides your age. You have to be 18 years old, and then also you can register online with the DuPage County Election Commission. So if you had anything to add on that, I know that it's posted on our website.
You can go to the library. The library has
Library, okay. The
register,
library will help.
registers.
Same, information for identification. Okay.
Okay. Other communications to share? Okay, then let's move on to the mayor's report. We have David Hoover with us from NIMEC this evening to give us a report. David, you want to come up to the podium? You did present a chart for us, but we would appreciate you going through it for us.
Sure, I'd be glad to.
For our viewing audience, too, to learn about the electric rates.
Sure, let me just do a very quick summary. What we're dealing with is something called electric municipal aggregation. And that is, the state of Illinois has authorized any community that passes a referendum for the municipality to go basically shop for power rates for the residents' home electric bills, in hopes of finding a more competitive rate than what ComEd offers. To date, it's been a huge success. Over the last about 3 years or so, the average resident has saved, the average single-family homeowner has saved $375 through the aggregation program. Again, we've compared your aggregation program rates to what the ComEd rates have been at that period of time. And the average homeowner in Darien has saved $375. It's $2.7 million when you aggregate it together. Your own little incentive program here in Darien. We last renewed the program about a year ago. At the time, and at the time we dropped the rate down to 6.9 cents. The ComEd rate at the time was right around 7.4. So that was attractive. Again, you did a 2-year deal. The ComEd rate is reset, excuse me, every June. And it was reset, unfortunately, a little bit lower than your rate. In other words, after you renewed your program, then ComEd, several months later, came up with our new rate. And with commodities dropping, like we've all seen, gasoline, prices have dropped. So the ComEd, their rate reflected that, and they came in at a rate currently, it'll be around 6.35 cents. So we've been a little underwater for the last, 9 months or so. The good news is that your rate, your 2-year rate that you have, has a built-in drop in September, and it will drop down to 6.44 cents. So you'll be quite competitive, almost matching the ComEd rate of 6.35, a little bit higher.
David, you said in September, this September,
Yeah,
what is
this
it going to?
September, correct. 6.44. If there's a built-in drop, nobody needs to do anything. Their rates will drop starting in September immediately to 6.44. So it'll be close to the ComEd rate, won't be exactly. The only other complicating factor in here is that the ComEd rate is not a fixed rate. It has a half cent. It can swing up to a half cent each way. So, and that is determined each month. So in other words, the ComEd rate will vary between 5.85 and 6.85. Okay, 5.85 cents and 6.85 cents starting in September. And yours is fixed at 6.44. It's pretty much a break even, but just in case any resident has any concern about rates, your program that you put together has, no early termination fees. Residents can leave anytime they'd like to, and there's no cost to convert or to leave. So they can go back to ComEd, they can go shop with anybody else they would so choose.
And how often can they do that?
The only switching rules per the ICC now is that you cannot return to the supplier you just left for 6 months. So, I mean, if you wanted to, you could hopscotch all the way around the block and come back, but you can't go back to the supplier you just went to for 6 months, the supplier you just left for a period of 6 months.
Okay, so that answers that question. It's not, we were thinking that it was, that individuals could move back and forth more frequently than 6 months, but now that's important information.
Yeah.
That there's a caveat of 6 months.
It used to be, I think there used to be a year hold, bundle hold, but they've reduced that. And so it's more customer friendly for the residents to be able to move. They can move to any, and even if they move back to ComEd, I mean, the next day they can go to any other supplier out there that's available to them. So you just can't come back to supplier
Constellation.
choice. Yeah.
And this is another 2-year term for us
Well, no, it'll go through September of next year.
of next year.
Yeah. So
When do we start negotiating for a new aggregated contract?
what we'll do, we've aligned the contract now to come out to eliminate as many surprises as we can. So once the ComEd rate comes out in the end of May of 17, We'll then go out to bid at that point in time, and we'll have a much better comparison. So the chance of being underwater will be minimized due to the fact that we've got it on a much better renewal schedule, calendar.
And you said that in September, our rate is going to drop to 644. How long will that stay in effect?
That'll be fixed for 12 months through the end of the
Through
contract.
the end of our contract.
That's correct.
Does anyone else have any questions for, go ahead.
I have a question.
Alderman
If I'm
Belke.
reading the graph right that you provided, it looks like the aggregation rate has pretty much always been higher, with the exception of August of 2015. Is that correct?
In this last,
In this slide?
the last 12 months,
Yes.
that is correct.
So the savings that the residents still have, even having said that, is either from August of 15 or prior years?
That is correct. Yeah, and if you see down at the very bottom of the page, you'll see what the average homeowner's impact is on a monthly basis.
Yes.
So it has been negative. It's been close, but it has been negative. And we worked with, with staff to put information on the website to make residents aware of that and to help them leave if they wanted to.
Dave, what you had mentioned, we had some questions. We were really waiting until the presentation before we, put information out to residents, because obviously there were
Okay.
some important questions. But the email you sent to me and Paul in May gave a sentence that residents would be better served. That's not necessarily a recommendation. That is if we did want to put something out to residents. Because obviously, switching the companies, while on paper it sounds pretty simple, I don't know that in reality, the calls get taken care of immediately. So I don't know, you're not really suggesting that residents go back, but we wanted to let them know basically what you're saying tonight so they can make that choice on their own.
That is correct. We wanted to make sure that, full disclosure, again, the ComEd rate has dropped down underneath your rate. And that chart indicates exactly what you're saying. We want to make that available and clear to residents. If they want to make that move, they can do that. We're not recommending it because we can't guarantee, if the ComEd rate dropped a full half-cent underneath our rate, then we would recommend it. Because in that case, that half-cent swing every month, worst-case scenario is the aggregation rate would still be above the ComEd rate. That's not the case. So because the ComEd rate will move between 585 and 685, there's a little bit of uncertainty in there as far as where it's going to actually come out, and that's determined every month. So as a result, I think the average resident, in my opinion, will probably be best served just to stay as they are. But again, we want to make sure that what we're trying to communicate is that if any resident this differs with my opinion, your program has an open door policy. They're free to leave. And we want to make sure that they understand how to do that there'll be no costs involved.
And again, the process should be simple. It's a
The
phone
process
call.
the process is simple. And
Okay.
so they would call your current supplier. They don't call ComEd. In case anybody is considering this, you do not call ComEd. You would call your current supplier, which is Constellation. Make sure you have your account number available, save you a few minutes, the phone call, and just tell Constellation that you want to move back to ComEd, and they will initiate that change. And depending on their call center and how much time it takes to get there, it should be a pretty painless process.
Okay.
So it's not a phone call to ComEd, it's a call to our current carrier.
Want to be clear of that. ComEd is not involved in switching, so that resides with us, a current supplier.
Any other questions for David? Well, we thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you.
It's, it's a subject matter that
That's fair enough. Yeah,
we don't
it
give a
affects
lot of
everybody.
thought to, yeah.
Yeah, it affects many residents, and it's been a very good program. Right now, we're a little bit sideways, but I think that'll correct itself here pretty quickly, and we'll talk to you next summer.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
you for coming. I'm going to switch things up a little bit. I'm going to have Claire Bongiovanni come forward first before I have Mr. Holderman come and speak, because Claire's presentation should not be very long. And how's your dad doing?
Okay.
Yeah. I know she couldn't be with us because she was taking care of her dad.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little update on Darien Fest. We have 3 days going on. September 9th, we're going to have the carnival from 6 to 10:30 p.m. The Darien VFW will be there on Friday as well, selling 50/50 raffle. On Saturday, September 10th, starting at 1 o'clock, we will have the carnival till 10:30. Darien VFW Post 2838 will be out there selling the 50/50. We'll have our business expo from 1 to 8 p.m. We will have the Darien Chamber Women in Business Adirondack Chair Auction from 1 to 8 p.m. We are going to have the pet parade again this year. This is our 4th annual, but we are not charging this year for any of the pets to participate. Everyone can just register, sign the waiver, be part of the parade. They're actually going to get judged as they walk up and just kind of walk around the park a couple times. As far as entertainment goes, we have the 2015 Darien's Got Talent winner from Downers Grove, Agne G, will be performing from 2:45 to 3:15.
On what day is this?
I'm sorry?
On what day is this?
We're still on Saturday, because it's just one
I
day.
mean, the pet parade on Saturday?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to,
Good.
yeah, you're off
Okay.
the hook.
Okay.
Trying to make it easy on everybody.
You know what, you have us stumped because we were just talking about the fact that Darien Fest is very much different this year, and we thought that all the tents would be gone after one day, but now you're telling me that the tents for all the vendors are still going to be up and working.
No, here's the scoop. So we are going to start setting everything up on Saturday morning, and then at 10:30 tearing everything down. There will be nothing in the park. The only thing that's going to be in the park are 2 tower lights, which will be delivered on Friday, and the porta potties, which will be delivered on Friday and picked up on Monday. Whatever we're setting up Saturday morning and tearing it down Saturday night after 10:30.
What's happening on Friday?
Just a carnival.
Okay, thank you.
We will be manning both of the lots on Friday and Saturday, because especially the north lot part of the carnival comes in that parking lot. So we got to make sure that no cars come in there, so none of the little kids get hurt. So basically, on Saturday is going to be our one-day Darien Fest, which is going to be like a typical Saturday that we've had in the past. So moving on with the entertainment, we have Agne G from 2:45 to 3:15. At 4:30, we have a tribute to Frank Sinatra featuring Nick Pontarelli. He'll be performing from 4:30 to 6. At 6:30 p.m., we have Our Gang Motown Music. And at 8:45 to 10:30, we have High Infidelity. So once 10:30 comes and we shut down the fest, we need to just get everything out. The business expo is supposed to end at 8, but sometimes the businesses like to just hang out and listen to the music. So, then they're going to have to tear down when we're tearing down. Then on Sunday, beginning at 1 p.m., it'll be just a carnival from 1 to 8. And Darien VFW will be out there as well, selling 50/50. This year, we have unlimited ride specials going on from Friday. We have 6 to 10 p.m. It's going to be $30 for the wristbands. On Saturday, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., $25 for the wristbands. And then Sunday, from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., $30 for the wristbands. So that's pretty much it right now. The plan for the bands are going to be, right now the bands are going to be playing inside the South Pavilion, but that may change because I'm trying to get my hands on a stage. If we do get our hands on the stage will not go in the spot where it normally goes. It's going to be set up immediately north of the pavilion, where then we'll put the beer, like we had it set up last year in the pavilion, but the stage will be right next to it, and kind of keep the fest all confined in the south part of the park. So what's harder this year for the chamber is because, like everything was set. We had a template. The last 3 years it was easy to just, get the vendors. Right now we're still kind of up in the air trying to figure this out, and how it's all gonna pan out, like, setting up, tearing down, having enough light. So it's been really difficult, but we're just trying to do the best that we can.
Claire, I'm sorry, I don't know if you mentioned the alcohol service, you've also asked for a revision there.
Yes, yes,
That's being voted on this evening.
yes, that would, if we can get that, that would be nice. And Chuck's agreed, if this passes, because they had asked me a couple years ago, they wanted to do the little hurricane. There's a little glass in our office, like a little orange glass, and they wanted to sell hurricanes, and I didn't know that, the ordinance didn't allow us to sell the hard liquor. So, we're going to try to change things up that way and introduce hard liquor and, bring in some different vendors as far as alcohol goes.
Okay. Any other questions for Claire? Okay, Claire, so when are you going to start advertising all these details about on your
Well,
on
it's
your
on the website. Everything that I've told you is on the website. I'm just trying to just enhance it a little bit more, and just kind of like tie down, the nuts and bolts to everything, and, just see what we can do. I have the flyers upstairs. I have like 200 of the posters. We have a couple banners left from last year that we're going to see if they can put them up at McDonald's on the corner and just, blast it out, social media, however we need to get it out.
Now, from what I understand, this is the last year for the carnival. Is that correct?
This is the last year with the contract for the carnival, but I believe at the last city council meeting, I may have mentioned that we were moving the fest to the Sportsplex in 2017. Well, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
So we don't even know, we don't have a carnival set for next year, and we don't even know where the fest is going to be at next year. So we just need to get through this fest, and then we'll start working on 2017.
Okay.
Next year it'll be 30 years, so, it should be a big celebration if we can keep it.
Okay. Any other questions?
Now, last year, I know that the Neighbors Magazine missed the fest in their publication. So
The insert,
when will the next Neighbors go out?
it should be out September 1st. Today is August 1st. It was a deadline, and I submitted all of the details. So it should be out September 1st.
Yeah, the last few editions have been on time, so we, our communication with them started a little early, so we'll make sure that it's out in time.
Okay, thanks for the update, Claire.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, now I'd like to ask Jim Holderman to come forward. Jim wants to discuss his concerns with the ComEd Smart Meter program. So, Jim, do you want to tell us who you are?
Yes. Good evening. My name is James Holderman. I'm a resident of Burr Ridge. But more importantly, I'm a concerned parent. To that, I'm going to pass around a picture of where my electric meter is, and I will refer to that during the course of this presentation. I'm also the point person for residents in Burr Ridge who are concerned about ComEd's smart meter deployment. Additionally, I am the author of the Smart Meter Letter, which can be found at www.thesmartmeterletter.com. I want to thank the Darien City Council for allowing me some time to present to you and your residents a portion of the information that has us in Burr Ridge concerned. As you can see, I've provided the Council with a copy of my prepared remarks. There's a lot of material here, so let me encourage you to mark any point where you would like me to follow up. As you may have seen in a Chicago Tribune article, on June 27th, the Village of Burr Ridge Board of Trustees unanimously passed a resolution encouraging ComEd to provide a permanent opt-out from ComEd's smart meter program. Currently, ComEd customers can only delay an inevitable forced installation of a smart meter. I could very easily spend an hour speaking on the subject of smart meters. Unfortunately, and at great personal and professional expense, I've spent over 700 hours studying this subject. As such, I can tell you the subject of smart meters is very complicated. If it were not so complicated, I believe the smart meter deployments would not be happening anywhere in this country. People would recognize the many risks involved and the violation of their rights, and they would say no way to smart meters. I've compiled a list of 14 reasons why smart meters are a concern. For the sake of time, the two categories of risk I'm going to discuss tonight are risk to health and risk to privacy. One of the primary concerns with regard to health risk is the fact that ComEd smart meters emit radio frequency radiation to communicate with other smart meters in what is called a mesh network. This radio frequency radiation network that will be permeating our neighborhoods transmits ComEd's customers' energy use information and other information between homes and back and forth with ComEd. Just months before the legislation that enabled smart meters was passed in Illinois in 2011, the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer officially classified radio frequency radiation as a Group 2B possible carcinogen. Since that time, some very significant studies, analyses, papers, letters, and articles have been published that overwhelmingly support the evidence of the health risks posed by exposure to radio frequency radiation. Further, it is now clearer than ever that the risks extend well beyond cancer. As you will see, the most troubling aspect of the risk profile coming into scientific focus is the significantly greater risk to unborn, babies, and children from exposure to radiofrequency radiation. In 2013, the American Academy of Pediatrics wrote a letter to the Federal Communications Commission. The FCC is the agency in the federal government that authorizes and licenses devices, transmitters, and facilities that generate radiofrequency radiation. The American Academy of Pediatrics states, and I quote, "Children are not little adults and are disproportionately impacted by all environmental exposures, including cell phone radiation. Current FCC standards do not account for the unique vulnerability and use patterns specific to women and children," end quote. Even the FCC's own website says the FCC's primary jurisdiction does not lie in the health and safety area, and it must rely on other agencies and organizations for guidance in these matters. It further states the FDA, which has primary jurisdiction for investigating mobile phone safety, has stated it cannot rule out the possibility of risk. But if such risk exists, it is probably small. It is probably small. On May 26th, the National Institutes of Health National Toxicology Program released partial results from its radiofrequency radiation animal study, which was nominated by the FDA. The long-standing and very well-respected specialty online news publication Microwave News broke the NTP story on May 25th. The article was titled, "Cell Phone Radiation Boosts Cancer Rates in Animals. $25 million NTP Study Finds Brain Tumors. U.S. Government Expected to Advise the Public of Health Risk." The article states, "The new results contradict the conventional wisdom advanced by doctors, biologists, physicists, epidemiologists, engineers, journalists, and other government officials, among other pundits, that such effects are impossible." At this point, a good question to ask might be, has ComEd or its representatives provided or promoted this conventional wisdom in their presentations to legislators, media, citizens, village boards, or city councils like this one? The answer is yes. On November 16th, 2015, Mr. Michael McMahon, ComEd's Vice President of Automated Meter Infrastructure Implementation, told this city council, "In terms of health effects of the meters, there are folks out there and they believe that it is a wireless device. It operates about 900 megahertz. That's the same frequency as a garage door opener or baby monitor. It operates less than 5 minutes a day, but they believe that it does emit radio waves, and they believe that causes cancer. There's hundreds of studies on this. I can provide you with some of the credible ones. There's a lot of bad information out there. We operate well below the what the FCC requirements are." I think the bad information referred to by the ComEd representative simply did not line up with the conventional wisdom that ComEd is determined to advance. And some of the information ComEd calls bad might actually have been right. And keep in mind, the FCC's primary jurisdiction does not lie in the health and safety area. The Microwave News article continues, quoting a government official, "Assuming that the exposures were carried out in a way that heating effects can be ruled out, then those that say such effects found are impossible are wrong." So I have another question. Is ComEd even willing to stop and really consider the possibility they are wrong about the health effects from smart meters? And what are the risks to ComEd if they stop? If ComEd gave any credence to the health risks posed by smart meters, they would be facing a huge problem. ComEd received $2.6 billion in ICC-approved consumer rate increases to digitize the electric grid. About half of that is for the smart meter program. ComEd has installed well over 2 million smart meters in northern Illinois and will be installing smart meters on your homes in Darien very soon. During a meeting with me and village officials in Burr Ridge, ComEd representatives, all of whom admitted no expertise in the field of radio frequency radiation, responded to the National Toxicology Program by simply questioning the validity of its conclusions. Chris Portier, Associate Director of the NTP, was interviewed by Mother Jones. Here's a quote from that article. "The findings should be a wake-up call for the scientific establishment," according to Portier. "I think it is a game changer," he said. "We seriously have to look at this issue again in considerable detail. The NTP does the best animal bioassays in the world. Their reputation is stellar. If they are telling us this was positive in this study, that's a concern." Dr. Otis Browley, the American Cancer Society's chief medical officer, weighed in with a press release from his organization. Dr. Browley wrote, "For years, the understanding of the potential risk of radiation from cell phones has been hampered by a lack of good science. This report from the National Toxicology Program is good science. The NTP report linking radiofrequency radiation to 2 types of cancer marks a paradigm shift in our understanding of radiation and cancer risk." Well, I ask, when will ComEd be willing to recognize and accept this paradigm shift in our understanding of radiation and cancer risk? The NTP found statistically significant dose-response increases in tumors and cancers, which were considered likely the result of whole-body exposure to radiofrequency radiation at a level below that where tissue heating would occur. The unexposed rats developed no such tumors or cancer. However, if the tumors, cancer, precancerous lesions were not troubling enough, what was potentially much more troubling yet went very underreported was the lower birth weights of the rat offspring, an up to 15% decrease in the body weights of the baby rats. I believe it is highly unlikely that the lower birth weight, an easy-to-measure metric, was the only effect on the rat's offspring. A corresponding decrease in brain size or in brain function may have also occurred, but was not measured, analyzed, or reported by NTP. However, these types of health effects have been documented in the scientific literature. Back in 2012, a team of doctors and scientists at Yale University published a study titled "Fetal Radiofrequency Radiation Exposure from 800 to 1900 megahertz rated cell phones Affects the Neurodevelopment and Behavior in Mice." The Yale group concluded, and I quote, "Radiofrequency radiation from cellular telephones leads to behavioral and neurophysiological alterations that persist into adulthood." Dr. Hugh Taylor, the chief of obstetrics and gynecology at Yale University Medical School, who helped conduct the study, said of the exposed mice, "So they were running around their cages bouncing off the walls, not a care in the world, something that in our eyes resembles attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in children." An article written about the study said the team found the mice that were exposed to the radiation tended to be more hyperactive, had reduced memory capacity. Taylor attributed the behavior changes to an effect during pregnancy on the development of the neurons in the prefrontal cortex region of the brain. In 2016, in an article in the Baltimore Sun titled "Pediatric Researchers Suggest Potential Dangers for Children from Cell Phone Exposure," reported on an American Academic Society recent meeting. I will quote from the article. Dr. Martha Herbert with Harvard University and Massachusetts General Hospital looked at the biological factors that can go wrong in autism and found a strong correlation with electromagnetic fields of Wi-Fi. The article also stated in other research, brain models and computer simulations show that children absorb 10 times more microwave radiation than adults because a child's skull is thinner and smaller. So you might ask, these studies mostly refer to cell phones. What is the risk of radiofrequency radiation emitted from smart meters? Well, first, the World Health Organization's possible carcinogen classification applies to all radiofrequency radiation. Other than that, nobody really knows if smart meters are less dangerous or more dangerous than any other wireless device. Such comparisons are very complicated. But what is not complicated is that our children will be disproportionately impacted. During an interview with Scientific American, Dr. Jerry Phillips, a biochemist at the University of Colorado, who did research for Motorola while working for the federal government in the 90s, said, "Part of the problem studying radiofrequency radiation is that we have not a clue what constitutes a dose. If you have a chemical, you can weigh it out and you know what a dose is. But with radio frequency radiation, there are too many parameters: power intensity, carrier frequency, length of exposure, signal intermittency, or some combination, and nobody knows what's most important. So everyone, including ComEd, is guessing right now on the amount of harm that may be caused by ComEd smart meters. And Mr. McMahon told me that ComEd doesn't have any liability insurance to cover illness or harm caused by their smart meter radiation emissions. The American Cancer Society states on its website, smart meters have not been studied to see if they cause health problems. Studies have looked at RF radiation from other sources. I guess we and our families will be the experiment. And please understand this, smart meters are very unique. It has been reported that smart meters emit radio frequency radiation pulses between thousands of times to well over 100,000 times a day. That's the signal intermittency that was referred to by Dr. Phillips. Mr. McMahon told this city council, there's 3 things that reduce exposure to any kind of radiation: time, distance, and shielding. If you can minimize your exposure, these things are on 5 minutes a day, you're going to receive less dose than you would otherwise. If you have shielding, that cuts down on the dose. And most of these meters are on the outside of your homes, so you have a wall between you. And I don't know anybody that spends their day next to a meter. I can tell you, looking from, you guys have seen on the pictures, my son spends a tremendous amount of time next to the meter. Mr. McMahon continued, and you have a wall. My son does not have a wall on his patio. Back to Mr. McMahon. And then how far you are away. As you double the distance, the dose goes down by a square of that, so 4 times. Well, Dr. Phillips stated, and I've been told essentially the very same comment from a number of other expert scientists and researchers studying radiofrequency radiation, we have not a clue what constitutes a dose. If every pulse of 900 megahertz radio frequency radiation emitted from a smart meter is a potential dose, depending only on some complicated and very difficult to determine proximity to the meter, and honestly, in all my research, I believe it very well could be, then those 5 minutes of on time that ComEd talks about are not at all safe. Because as I said, that 5 minutes is made up of potentially thousands and thousands and thousands of millisecond-long doses occurring intermittently throughout the day. One of the finest paragraphs I've seen written on this subject was by Dr. Andrew Goldsworthy, who received his PhD from the University of Wales. His incredibly prescient article was submitted in 2010 at the request of the Canadian House of Commons Standing Committee on Health. Dr. Goldsworthy writes, "There is increasing evidence that wireless transmissions have biological effects, some of which are harmful, at levels that may be orders of magnitude below safety standards. These guidelines were drawn up on the assumption that the radio frequency radiation could only damage living cells if it's created significant heat." Dr. Goldsworthy continues, "Modulated microwaves such as those from cell phones, portable phones, Wi-Fi, baby monitors, wireless smart meters are sources of potentially damaging radiation. The strength of the radiation appears to be less important than the duration and pattern of exposure, with intermittent and repeated exposures being the most damaging. The strong, regular transmissions from wireless smart meters are particularly harmful and more likely to lead to DNA damage, cancer, and autism." So how did we get here? Well, this whole smart meter deployment is happening as part of something called Grid 2030. In July 2003, the U.S. Department of Energy produced a document titled Grid 2030, a national vision for electricity's second 100 years. On page 17, Grid 2030 is explained. I quote, "Grid 2030 is a fully automated power delivery network that monitors and controls every customer and node, ensuring a two-way flow of electricity and information between the power plant and the appliance and all points in between. Monitors and controls every customer." Wow, that just sounds so un-American and unconstitutional that you would think there would have to be some mistake. The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States very specifically protects people in their own homes against unreasonable searches and seizures. So what could control and monitor mean? A Midwest Energy News article posted on June 22nd titled "Illinois Looks to Data Access for Savings" seems to confirm reason for concern. The article describes a future interactive energy market where, I quote, "people would constantly adjust their energy use, cut back when regional demand and prices are high, and do energy-intensive tasks when overall demand and prices are low. End quote. The article says basically the problem is that most people don't have the time or interest to constantly monitor and control their energy in their homes. The article then states, and I quote, "That's where many see an important role for third-party actors who essentially manage a ratepayer's energy use for them, adjusting their thermostats and other smart appliances in real time, and otherwise helping people make changes that will reduce their usage during peak demand times." The article continues, but to do this, third-party companies need access to customers' energy use in real time. Only recently have utilities been able to provide customers with detailed data on their energy use, thanks to smart meters and other smart grid-related technologies. But utilities typically do not provide this data to third parties, in part because of privacy and security concerns. Utilities typically do not provide this data to third parties. I contend that ComEd should not even have access to such detailed data. Data that has been reported to include when and how often you use different appliances, the brands of the appliances you use, even what TV shows you watch on TV. That doesn't even contemplate if you have a home security system, when it is on and when it is off, or when you leave for work early on a Monday morning, or when you get home late on a Friday night, or any other of your basic life patterns. So right now, ComEd customers are forced to pay an extra fee to protect their family's health and privacy. Unless things change in the next year or two, ComEd customers will be forced to have a smart meter. And once that smart meter is installed, someday after that, a ComEd customer might be forced to pay extra just to continue to fully control their own thermostat, air conditioner, or washing machine. Here's what I know. The possibility of cancer, tumors, lower birth weights in offspring, autism or ADHD in children from radio frequency radiation emitted from smart meters should never be forced upon people by a monopoly or a state, and all the more when monitor and control are the stated goals. The very reasonable request of a permanent opt-out from smart meters is, in my mind, a litmus test for government-supported corporate tyranny. We will see how things go. Wireless telecom's 5G deployment is coming next. Thank you for allowing me to share this very important information with you. I think Darien residents should be very proud of their mayor and their city council for taking some additional steps to inform themselves and the residents of Darien about the facts of this smart meter installation program.
Thank you, James. Did anyone on the council have a question for Mr. Haldeman?
I got a quick one.
Alderman Kenny?
Mr. Haldeman, thank you for putting all this together. Do you own an RF meter by any chance?
I sure do.
Okay. And have you gone to any other smart meters?
I've tested a few.
Tested them?
Yes.
And what have you found?
It goes right off the chart of my meter.
How come you didn't put that in your report here to us?
I had a limit that I was trying to work with.
I make sure I'm putting in information. You've given us, the city council, a whole bunch of information to go over, and I applaud you for it. But in your conquest to do this, you want to make sure you get some relevant information for us to put our minds around, because just with all due respect, we have a city council that's got 140 pages to read on the weekend, and we've had about a couple hundred pages to read from you. So to get your point across, and like I said, I applaud you, but you got to give the city council, things, the meat and potatoes of what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I will do better for the next council, hopefully, that I'm able to bring this information to. I am an amateur at this radio frequency radiation testing. Let me refer you to ComEd's smart meter graph here, and I can tell you that if you really studied this graph, there are a lot of questions, and the RF described by the graph is not really truly representative of a realistic comparison. So, we can get into that if you want me to. I can take you through this entire graph. I'm trying to provide you with documented material, not my amateur radio frequency, radiation testing, which, is arguably not even admissible in.
Because when you called me, I took this seriously. I downloaded the book Overpowered by Martin Blank.
Yeah,
and
wonderful.
I'm certainly going through it.
Oh, wonderful.
So I'm not trying to beat you up. Okay?
No, and I can provide you my amateur testing. I can send it in. I'm trying to provide you guys with expert analyses. I have a meter that I bought for my personal use. I am not a radio frequency radiation analyst. I have done some testing. It goes off my chart. It does exactly what is described in the literature, and, you know, that's the best I can tell you.
Thanks.
Any other, Alderman Belke?
What is the fee that they're charging if you're on the delay program?
Well,
Do you
and
know?
ComEd is here, and they can verify this, but you will get put on the delay list. After the deployment comes to your area, you will have 4 months of, you know, I guess some sort of grace period, and then you will be charged $21.53 per month until the deployment is over, I guess, in all of Northern Illinois, at which point they're going to come back around and they are going to force you to put a smart meter on your home.
And it sounds like a big discrepancy that I see too is initially, 5 minutes a day versus all day long back and forth is quite a difference.
Well, and so we can have ComEd come back up here and explain this. The 5 minutes a day is made up, as I understand it, according to court documents that I have seen and the field testing that I have done, is made up of, like I said, thousands and thousands and thousands of little pulses that they add up that are going on 24 hours a day throughout your entire day. So if you have 190,000 pulses, you are a relay, what's called a relay meter within your neighborhood. You're sending it to, I guess, their relay. You will be getting 2 pulses every second. 190,000 pulses in a day. Now, will that add up to 5 minutes? If they're very, very short pulses, it will. The science is saying we don't know exactly why we are seeing these health effects. Signal intermittency, that means that pulse that is, that your whole body is absorbing, depending upon how close you are to the meter, depending upon if there's shielding in front of you, is potentially a dose. And so, it could be very significant. We don't know. The American Cancer Society says we don't have any studies. We'll find out when people start, I guess, developing symptoms.
From what I recall also, that part of this program is you sign online and create a password or what have you so that they can have your information or you can extract your own information. But I'm thinking if you don't sign up for that, then what could they be taking? Are they taking less or would they be taking nothing? If
Yeah,
you
no,
don't
I think
sign up
ComEd,
for
I
that.
think all those
Yeah, that's
questions
it.
should be referred to
Right.
ComEd.
Well, if they don't have the smart meter, they wouldn't be taking anything.
No, but if you have a smart meter, you still have to sign up for the whatever. You have to sign up online to utilize it to its
To see-
fullest capacity or whatever. So if you don't sign up for it, I
Well-
wonder what that means.
Well, here's
as
what
far
I
as
do know.
frequencies
So
go.
there are 2 radios on this computer-like device. This is a small computer that is being attached to your home. Do not become confused that this is not a very sophisticated device. It is a very sophisticated device that is going to be taking software updates, that has tremendous capacity for additional features. So one radio is going to be for your sort of home network with your different appliances, and you have to, I guess, give ComEd authorization to turn that meter on, and then it will connect, okay? So that's one meter, or one radio. The second radio is the 900 megahertz radio, which I'm speaking of, which is the mesh network. The data that is coming out of those smart meters is, in one case, the appliances in your home, if you have, authorized ComEd to do that. And here, I will share with you my big concern. My big concern is someday we have set a precedent. Someday you will have to pay a fee to not have your appliances turned on. So now you're going to be paying another $21.53 every time they decide to incrementally encroach. It's going to cost you more money because they will say that they can save money by turning off your air conditioner, by turning off your washing machine. So my worry is that they will continue to enter.
Okay, any other questions for James? James, I think we will let, I think the gentleman that you quoted a number of times, Mr. McMahon is here. Yes,
I was glad to see him.
yes. Did Philip, were you going to address this, or was Mr. McMahon going to? McMahon, okay, so.
Wow. I have about a 4-minute statement. I was asked to limit this to about 4 to 5 minutes. That's
And
what I intend to do.
you heard Alderman Belke's questions and Alderman Kenny's questions, so along with your 4 minutes, maybe you could address what they just asked.
So we'll get through the statement, and then any questions you may have, please, and I'll answer anything I can.
Okay.
I'd like to thank the Mayor Weaver and the entire Darien City Council for allowing me to speak here today. We've been here a few months ago, and we're back to address any concerns you may have. As we said, we were last here for the ComEd smart meter deployment. It's part of a statewide initiative authorized by the Illinois General Assembly by a supermajority. Nationally, there are over 60 million meters, smart meters in service as we speak. Many of these meters were deployed under the federal program for the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. In the ComEd service territory, we currently have 2.4 million meters deployed. 99.9% of our customers are benefiting from these smart meters, with only about 0.1% or 2,400 out of the 2.4 million choosing not to accept a meter for various reasons. While we are sensitive to the concerns of those that have refused smart meters due to health concerns, which is one of several reasons people refuse a smart meter, we have reviewed extensive studies done by credible third-party researchers on the effects of radio frequency on human health and found that the vast weight of scientific evidence has found no evidence that smart meters pose any specific risk. Of course, there is always continuing research in this field. For example, as we just heard, there was a report by the National Toxicology Program which released preliminary findings that were widely reported by the press. And we do not dispute these findings. It was a good study. All the reports say it was a good study. Cost the taxpayers $25 million to study these rats. The study found low incidence of 2 types of tumors in male rats that were likely a result related to radio frequency waves emitted by cell phones. The study also found no cancer in the female rats, and that the exposed rats lived longer than the control group, which had no exposure. The rats' exposures are specifically designed to simulate radio frequency exposure from cell phones, which means these rats were exposed to thousands of times the exposure one would receive from a smart meter. Now, I always caution myself not to reach sweeping conclusions based on news reports or Googling around the internet, taking things, little paragraphs here or there. I'm not an expert. I rely on the FCC and the FDA. But when asked by NBC News, what is the takeaway that the average person should get from this study, Dr. John Butcher, the Associate Director for the National Toxicology Program, he's the guy responsible for this test, answered, so this is a study that is looking at the biological plausibility of carcinogenic effects due to cell phone radiation. The direct translation of the findings to the way humans are using cell phones is not currently completely worked out, and that's part of the evaluation that's going forward. This may have relevance, it may have no relevance, unquote. Smart meters comply fully with the FCC health and safety guidelines and emit RF signals far weaker than the levels permitted by the FCC. In fact, people receive significantly less RF exposure from smart meters than they do from many other electronic devices that they use in their daily lives, including cell phones and microwaves and Wi-Fi, and you have Wi-Fi in this room right now. Should the FCC ever adjust its guidelines, of course, ComEd will be in full compliance. The safety and welfare of ComEd's customers and their families is and always will be the top priority of ComEd. Smart meters provide our customers with numerous benefits, including greater control over their energy management, improved power reliability, faster outage restoration times, actual bills instead of estimated charges, high energy usage alerts, weekly energy usage reports, reduced greenhouse gas emissions, support from green energy such as rooftop solar, peak time savings program, and other optional pricing programs, which is a dynamic pricing program I might have talked about when I was here before. It does have some implications for your Muni Ag program, which Phil can explain to you later. The current price for these dynamic pricing right now, at this time, right now, this hour, is 3.4 cents a kilowatt hour. I would also like to point out that there is an existing deferral process allowing customers to choose to defer the installation of a smart meter. As I said, about 0.1% of the people have used this process. This temporary deferral goes out for the next 3.5 years until December 31st, 2019, at which time the Illinois state law does require all of Illinois to have a smart meter. That includes the Ameren service territory as well. I have personally been to many dozens of town halls. ComEd has heard our customers and your constituents' comments. As we have continued smart meter installation, we have been mindful of the future sunset of the temporary deferrals 3.5 years from now. We are working on preparing a filing for the ICC to help address the timing of the opt-out options for customers who may choose not to install a smart meter. We expect this filing to happen before the end of the month. As we install smart meters throughout our territory, ComEd has remained very engaged with all our customers and communities to ensure that they understand the safety and security of smart meter technology. We remain committed to working with our customers to address their concerns as we install the smart meters that are improving grid performance and giving customers options for greater control over their energy usage. Thank you for your time. Questions, if you have.
Alderman Belke, did you want to address your
I think I
Yes.
stayed within my 4
Right,
to 5
so
minutes.
the first question was about the 5-minute long versus the constant,
Right.
frequencies going back and forth. Is that what the gentleman was alluding to, that it may be all day long, but it all adds up to about 5 minutes?
Well, that's partially correct. I mean, the meters do, just as your cell phone does, they check for connectivity with the network. And those transmissions are very short in time frame. We're talking milliseconds, the thousandths of a second. But if you add up every transmission that a smart meter makes throughout the day, it's less than 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes or less. Many are far less than 5 minutes.
And would it be less if you didn't sign up online to have information, going back and forth? You know what I'm saying? Because there is that
no, I understand
added feature.
No, I understand the question. Well, see, the smart meters are all about choice. You can choose to sign up online to review your energy usage, to get high energy usage alerts, to get your weekly energy. You can choose to do all that. If you don't sign up online and you just don't want to take any actions that are different, you don't have to. The meters still make the same number of transmissions. They transmit the data to us once every 4 hours, 6 times a day. That's what allows us to get the interval usage. We collect the interval usage in 30-minute increments. We cannot tell what's going on in your house. I cannot tell what your appliance is. I cannot tell what TV shows you're watching. I can't tell anything except kilowatt hours. That's because of the 30-minute interval usage. That's what we collected at. Now, some people do want to be able to monitor that themselves. And if you get the interval usage down small enough, short enough, you do reach the point where you can start making some inferences about whether it's your refrigerator or whether it's a freezer or whether it's a television set. As far as programs, what you're watching on TV, no idea how that would work. I just can't see it. But that's your choice. And some people, we have a program with Bidgley underway, they do want to see that. But once again, that's your choice. Alls we see in terms of the interval usage is kilowatt hours. That's it. We don't know what's going on in your house, and we have no desire to know what's going on to your house.
That application you're talking about that a homeowner can get, is there a fee to that?
There's a pilot right now. I do not believe there's a fee with the pilot, but it's only a pilot, very limited, few hundred people, just to see how it works and if it has any value. But it's not available for everyone right now.
But you don't know if there's going to be a fee if that application becomes available?
No idea.
Okay.
No idea. It's not been developed that far right now, but that would be a customer choice, because what happens is in terms of data, you can imagine that if I get 30-minute interval data from you throughout the day, and now you as a customer come and say, oh no, I want it at 1 minute. I want it at a minute data. Well, that's obviously, 30 times as much data every 30 minutes that I would otherwise collect. That means bigger servers, more data management, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you can get in-home devices, which you can purchase on your own if you so choose. We'll help you sync those devices up, which will give you real-time energy usage. But once again, that's your choice. We don't provide that, those to you. We'll just help you use it if you choose to.
Okay.
Is the $21.50, is that a federally regulated fee, state one, or do you know how that came about?
I do. It is not federal. It's $21.53 a month after a certain amount of a notification period. The cost is determined, went through a hearing with the Illinois Commerce Commission to determine what that cost would be. The notion is that smart meters are our standard. They are the state of Illinois' standard. And as I said, over 60 million deployed throughout the United States. So the cost of the smart meters is more than offset. There's a $2 billion net benefit to Illinois residents with smart meter deployment over the 20-year lifetime of the meters. So the notion is that if you choose not to have a smart meter, which is your choice right now, that's okay, and we don't take much for you don't even have to tell us why. The second biggest cause for refusers is no reason. So if you refuse, then we lose the cost benefits, and so do all the ratepayers, our customers, your constituents, lose the cost benefits as a smart meter. So the notion is the refuser, the cost causer, should bear the cost of their decision. And so they pay the cost of their refusal because we're not benefiting, and our customers, your constituents, are not benefiting from the cost reductions we have associated with smart meters.
So by them paying the $21.50, now our benefits to the people that are using it is back up.
I would say it's not, yes, it washes out the negative because the cost is cost-based. We have to maintain a dual billing system. So with a smart meter, I get the information, as I said, 6 times a day, once every 4 hours, transmits wirelessly to us. We receive that information, automatically goes into our computer programs, syncs up with the residents' information. Their bill is automatically generated. We look to have no human touch a bill at all. Now, if you have an analog meter, which, by the way, analog meters aren't even manufactured anymore. They're all remanufactured. You can't buy a new analog meter. So eventually, we're going to have to say we're not going to warehouse those. They do have digital meters that are not smart. But for the analog meter, I now have to send somebody out to your home to read that meter. And then even if you wanted to call in your meter reading number, say, oh, you don't have to come look. I'll just read my own meter and tell you what it is. Well, there's obvious issues with that on our system. But even if you were to do that, we still have to maintain a separate back office. So that number has to be received by a clerk. That clerk has to type it into the system, and we have to manually generate that bill with a lot of touch points. So there's a lot of cost associated with not having that smart meter. And that's what we're trying to get out of the system, and that's what generates the $2 billion in net benefits.
Any other questions?
So at the end of the 3 years, if somebody wants to maintain paying $21.53 a month because they don't want to, and it's a risk, okay? And it's an uncalculated risk because it sounds like there's a lot of information out there, but nobody can really pinpoint and say whatever it is. So why in year 4 or 5 moving forward can they continue on with the $21? I understand there's the cost share and you're losing it, okay? But I got to believe that there's more people out there who don't want to pay the $21.53 additional a month on their bill, and it's probably a small minority who would rather pay the $21.53 a month. Why can't they forgo that, moving forward? After year 3.
Continue paying the fee?
Continue to pay the fee.
Yeah, well, that right now, today, that is part of the Illinois state law. That's not a ComEd rule. That's not a ComEd practice. That's part of the Energy Infrastructure Modernization Act. So I don't get a choice in that. That's what the law says. It says that the clear intent of the General Assembly was that everyone would have a smart meter. That's pretty clear. And then what the law goes on to say is 1 year after full deployment, which our full deployment is December 31st, 2018, or June of 2022, whichever comes first, everybody will have a smart meter in the state of Illinois. There wasn't much wiggle room in that language for us. So in order to change that, and give people that option, that's the filing that I referred to, that we're currently working on. As I said, I go to a lot of these town hall meetings. This is not the first time we have heard this, but we have 3.5 years before this becomes operative. Now, for me, that's a long time. I don't know what the world's going to look like in 3.5 years. So I felt like I have lots of runway, and we have been having internal discussions around this. But right now, we are preparing a filing with the ICC that will present some options in this regard. Now, that's not unilateral. I don't get to do that on my own. That has to be approved. But we will be making that filing by the end of the month.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Was someone else going to address us? Was Phil?
Also, I'll give you one more offer.
Uh-oh.
We are deploying in Darien right now. We'd be glad to come out and take RF measurements of any meter anywhere you want by, people that know how to do this thing.
I've got a meter. I'll take you up on it. I'll take you up on
I'd
it.
love to do
I'll
that.
take you up on it.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
mine
You got,
was- Okay,
you got that?
Yeah.
We look-
okay. Thank you.
Next 2 weeks?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank
catch up.
you.
Thank you. Okay. Jim, no rebuttals. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. We have more than enough material to review. We keep playing telephone tag there, Mr. Halliburton.
But I sent you that email regarding the residence day, so.
Oh, I didn't see it. Okay.
No problem. And I apologize, my phone has been acting weird this weekend, so after you called me, I wasn't able to get anything until about 5 o'clock today.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, let's move on to the city clerk's report.
Just one announcement, Madam Mayor. Meet and greet will take place with the mayor on Monday, August 15th at 6 p.m. here at City Hall in the upstairs conference room.
Okay. We may cancel that.
Oh.
Yeah, that's my birthday. I don't even know if I want to be here. But we'll make sure we get that news out. Okay. City administrators report.
No report, Mayor Weaver, thank you.
Okay. Department head information.
Well, I have no report. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions in regards to the last couple rains we had. Really quick, bottom line is between Thursday and Friday. Friday specifically, we had about 3.5 inches of rain that fell within an hour. Obviously, there was some localized flash flooding at its best. So again, if there's any other questions, we are addressing things with residents that we've seen out in the field.
Dan, I'm going to piggyback on that. And you and I had a discussion last week, actually prior to that rain. If a resident feels that their street is compromised safety because of the flooding, we encourage them to dial 911 in order to get possible barricades out to their properties. Correct?
And while that is correct, the situation that just happened Thursday and or Friday, by the time a call would have been placed to 911 and we would have been dispatched, it probably would have been gone. A lot of the areas had subsided within 20 minutes to 45 minutes at best. Obviously, there are areas throughout town that have prolonged flooding just due to the way things were constructed.
I do, for the clerk, I do have a communication then based on that. Just reminded John Strauss on the 1800 block of GG Lane called me last week when they had water in the street. I forgot about that till just now.
Correct, and that was one of the, I think we had canvassed or actually we put signs up in place that said,
It was on a Sunday night, so there was not a chance we would have had it done.
no, right, but I'm saying, I believe we were introducing the put signs, or we did put signs up there, water on pavement, but the residents requested us to take them back down, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Thank you.
Can I add, since this was brought up, the Clarendon Hills situation where that is well known that the area always has water, and we had that similar thing with the sign that we took down. But so we know that's happening. There was people out there with the barricades and stuff, but there was cars still going through. Is that something that in the future we should reroute and not let that wake happen? Maybe that's the force that broke that gentleman's window.
I think it's a matter of manpower at that point, whether the police department's getting inundated with other calls potentially, for our guys to go and set up detours. By the time we set up detours, again, it's gonna be 45 minutes, a minimal of 45 minutes, if not an hour. By that time, again, everything will be subsided. That's typically the situation. Longer rain events, that we've had in years past, sure, and that might work in those situations.
You know, you can't dictate stupidity either, that people will actually drive through that water. I mean, that is just amazing to me, that, you know, with barricades up, they still do it.
Well, I think that sometimes they don't mean to, like, if you're driving, you don't really know until you get up kind of how deep it is maybe, and then they can't back up, and, you know, that would cause a lot of problems to change their mind at that point. But hopefully you would see ahead of you enough of the other cars with the water they spit up that they should avoid
Well,
it.
Well, keep 'em-
my point is, why
Try to
take the risk
avoid
of
it.
driving into it?
Yeah.
And we had signs up in place on Clarendon Hills Road that we ended up taking down as well, that were basically warning motorists of water, and it just received negative
Right,
feedback,
right.
so we did end up taking them down.
That's right, and I've forgotten
Yeah,
that they asked those signs to be taken down because they thought the effect was on their insurance.
On real estate.
On
On real estate, they're
values.
bringing their property values down.
Yeah, I remember. Any other department head reports? No,
all I have.
we're good? Okay. Treasurer's report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening, I'm requesting council's approval of warrant number 161707, the amount of $557,884.54 from the enumerated funds, payroll for the period ended July 21st, the amount of $261,273.72, for a total to be approved of $819,158.26.
Let's approve that warrant first. Alderman Kenny, seconded by Alderman Belke. Does anybody have any questions on that report for the treasurer? Then the roll, please.
Kenny?
Aye.
Belkey?
Aye.
Belzak?
Aye.
Marquez?
Aye.
Shower?
Aye.
5 ayes and 2 absent.
The warrant has been approved, and you wanted to go over the monthly reports?
Right, we have two revenue and expenditure reports for April 30th and for the first month of the current fiscal year, May 31st. If you'll notice at the top, they are indicated preliminary results, which just means we just received the first draft of our audit report from the auditors this morning, but I wanted to get some more current information to the council. So these numbers are preliminary and subject to change. We will finalize the numbers and show the budget to actuals, and when we finalize the April 30th a little bit later in the next couple of meetings. But that being said, April 30th report shows the general fund for the 12-month revenue of $14,852,218, expenditures of $11,278,301, for current balance of $4,191,059. Water fund year-to-date revenue $7,058,359, expenditures of $7,002,423, for current balance of $89,956. Motor fuel tax fund year-to-date revenue $566,351, expenditures $579,926, current balance of $268,513. Water depreciation fund year-to-date revenue $350,108, expenditures of $133,463, current balance of $91,313. Capital improvement fund year-to-date revenue $3,729,882, expenditures of $5,006,501, current balance $4,410,838. Capital projects debt service fund year-to-date revenue $507,236. Like expenditures for a current fund balance of $0.
Okay. We're going to exhaust you reading these reports.
No, not quite like the other gentleman. The period ended May 31st. If you'll notice one other thing in here, as we had budgeted, you'll see that we are reflecting the transfer from the general fund of the $3.8 million over to the capital improvements fund, and also $400,000 from the water fund to the water depreciation fund is being reflected. That being said, general fund 1 month revenue, $931,272, expenditures of $672,696, current balance $986,270. Water fund year-to-date, month-to-date revenue of $1,046,721, expenditures of $82,151, current balance of $564,570. Motor fuel tax fund year-to-date, month-to-date revenue $50,394, Expenditures of $24,747. Current balance $294,161. Water depreciation fund, a deficit revenue loss on investments $5. Current balance $399,995. Capital improvement fund revenue of $2,479. Expenditures of $85,813 for a current balance of $8,127,504. Capital projects debt service fund revenue of $111 for a light balance in the fund balance.
Any other questions for the treasurer on that report? Okay, and Treasurer Corn wanted to address the police pension discussion at the meeting, at the pension meeting?
Yes, two items. I just wanted to update the council. We had our police pension board meeting last Wednesday, where the presentation for the investments of our police pension fund, which approximate $24 million, each being managed by two different investment managers, each handling about half of those investments. The performance for the second quarter, which covers the period April through June, one investment manager had a performance of a positive 1.66%, and the other just over 1%. As you recall, the Brexit was voted on at the end of June, did have an impact because the market sold off fairly dramatically there at the end of June, has recovered quite substantially in July, so we're hoping for better performance going forward. Longer term, you look at it, and the investment performance is much better in the current fiscal year than it was in the past, but naturally anything goes there. The second thing that's actually very important is the actuary of the police pension fund did his presentation of the actuarial report, which determines our contribution for the coming fiscal, not the current fiscal year, but the coming fiscal year. And the increase will be approximately $50,000 from our current year, which is better than we had been budgeting. But he is a new actuary and does want to adjust some of the assumptions that are being used in there, which would probably cause it to increase in the future. I did request that he attend a city council meeting so he can do a presentation to the council members. We're going to try to get him for the next city council meeting. If he has a conflict with his schedule, it would be the first one in September, but we're trying to have him for the next council meeting. Two of the council members, Alderman Schauer, the chairman of the finance committee, and Alderman Kenny both attended, and I was grateful to have them there for the participation in that.
Okay. Thank you for the information. Let's move to standing committee reports. Alderman Marquez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a reminder that the Municipal Services Committee meeting is scheduled to meet August 22nd at 6:30 here in the council chambers.
Thank you. Alderman Schauer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The minutes from our May 2nd, 2016 Admin Finance meeting have been approved and submitted to the clerk's office. And our next Admin Finance meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 6, 2016, and at 6 p.m. in our upstairs meeting room.
Police committee report at all?
You want to give the date? And
I have, let's see, Monday, August 15th at 6 p.m. for the police committee.
Alderman Marquez, what was your date for your meeting?
August 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
She's free to go, even though she has one item. I know she's got.
Oh, she was concerned, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Questions, comments, agenda related to, we didn't get a chance to, well, there is no one in the audience this evening, so I should say Darien residents to address any of the items on the agenda. Let me put it that way. Let's move on to old business, and there being no old business, I'll move right to the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first item is a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing the disposal of our surplus property, and there's quite a long list of items on that list. The next item is a motion to approve the expenditure of budgeted funds for line item 1-40-4325, which is consulting professional services for the 1-year law enforcement policy manual update subscription with Lexipol in the amount of $7,215. The third item is a motion to approve an ordinance amending our various sections of our Title 8, Chapter 1, Police Department of the City Code to amend, to remove Deputy Chief and Lieutenant and replace it with two commanders. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Marquez, seconded by Alderman Belzak. The roll, please.
Marquez,
Aye.
Belzak,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Shower,
Aye.
Belkey,
Aye.
5 ayes and 2 absent.
All three items have been approved. The next item is under new business. We have a motion to approve an ordinance amending Title III, Chapter 3, Section 3-3-7-10, which is our Class J license in our Darien City Code. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Shower, seconded by Alderman Belke. Any discussion? The roll, please.
Shower,
Aye.
Belkey,
Aye.
Belzak,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Marquez,
Aye.
5 ayes and 2 absent.
The motion has been approved. Let's move to questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature. Do any of the aldermen want to address? Alderman Belzak?
Yeah, actually, I had a question, and it has to do with our May report. That was the first month the gas tax would have started and the food and beverage tax. I saw on there we generated about $60,000 worth of tax income. Is that in line what we had anticipated when we discussed that? And I don't know.
Yeah, actually, I think it was a little slightly, it was actually over, and we had even have all the numbers in at the time. Brian, I mean, you could address that. I know you sent me and Kathy the first month's report. We're just getting
Yeah,
on
it
our
was right
feet
in
with it.
line.
but-
And we have a couple businesses, if I'm not mistaken, still that might submit quarterly. So we'll have maybe a little more in there. And we still have, I believe, one business who still has not paid us that we're collecting. But it seemed to be, yeah, actually very well in line, yes. I can put something out to the council too,
Yeah,
so we
good
have
question.
that information.
All righty. If there's no other questions, comments, I'd like to open it to the audience. Anyone in the audience want to address the council on any item? Then I would like,
Here, I'm sorry, I did want to make one qualifier, though. If you straight lined it, you know, it seems to be in line with, you know, the holiday seasons and that fluctuation. That's the only thing that's unknown, but if you just straight line it, it looked pretty good. I'm sorry, Mayor, I
That's
wanted
okay.
to
No.
clarify that.
that's important information. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn then. Alderman Kenny, seconded by Alderman Belke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.